All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praises and glory and honor to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem, or Karkadash, and Heavenly Father. True name is Yahweh, and His unbegotten Son Bahashem, in the name of Hamashiach Yahushua. Those are their true names in the ancient Paleo Hebrew, Malash Makadosh Lutan. I say Barak to the elders and apostles, wa Akim Aqua, and I say Shalom. And the Heavenly Father, true name is Yahweh, and His only begotten Son, Bahashem, in the name of Hamashiach Yahushua. Those are the true names in the ancient Paleo Hebrew, the Lashma Kadash tongue. And I say Barakatham to the elders and apostles, while Akim Aqua, and I say Shalom. And this is a sit-down lesson of the prophecy updates as of June the 28th, 2025, on this Saturday. And this is a news article from RT.com. I believe this took place day before yesterday. And this is over there in Armenia. You had, this is RT.com as of June 27, 2025. And it reads, it says, prompt Armenia clerk arrested on coup charges, live updates. It says law enforcement raided a local seat of the National Church, which has protected territorial concessions to our Azerbaijan. It says a prompted Armenia church AAC clerk has been arrested on the coup charges after his voluntary surrender to the authorities at the conflict between Prime Minister Nicola and the opposition deepenings. It says police raid the seat of the country's church and the largest in Armenia in the city of Vakorashkopat, if I pronounced that right, leading to major clashes between clerks and church members and law enforcement. It says though the pro-church protesters have managed to block early attempts to detain Archbishop Michael Aljabrapania, if I pronounced the name right, the clerk closes to watch to investigate committee's IC building and to turn himself in early. It says authorities has tried to detain Aljabrapania on suspicions of attempting to stage a coup. Accusations of the clerk has denied. It says a number of pro-church protesters has been detained, and the IC has announced that it has launched criminal proceedings in obstruction of justice. It says the country's government has been at odds with the AAC for months, as it emerged as a main driver behind the mass protests against the Palestinian agreements to hand over several border villages of Azerbaijan, which it says with which Armenia has a border dispute. It says while Pashananian portrayed the move as a pathway to mending tenuous relations between the two former Soviet republics, many Armenians have been as a betrayal of national interest. As a standoff escalated, Armenian authorities on Wednesday arrested Berglar Galskavanian, a high-profile clerk and a key protest leader, on charges. They also detained Russian Armenia billionaire Semvel Karabashkiny, who voiced support AAC. Karapatin faces charges of calling for overthrow of the state. Miralax works naturally with the water in your body. Miralax, free your gut to free your mood. For more fiber per serving than any other gummy, try Mirafiber. It's the book of Luke 21 and verse 25. It says, and there shall be signs in the sun and the moon and the stars upon the earth. The disgrace of nations will perplex Caesar's wrong, right as we're seeing with the protesters. We're seeing that around the world, uptick of protests and seditions among both organization factors. That's what we've been seeing. Just like it says in the book of 2nd Esdras 9 verse 3, there shall be seen earthquakes of world's people world. And this is the book of St. Mark, chapter 3, and verse 24. It says, "And if a kingdom be divided, several kingdoms cannot stand." Right, that's what we see in modern day kingdoms been divided, which cannot stand. That's what we're seeing. St. Mark 3, verse 25. "And if a house be divided, except the house cannot stand." Right, modern day house be divided, which cannot stand, which we're seeing. It's the book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 3, and verse 8. It says, "In a time to love, and a time of HATE, and a time of war, time of peace." Right, we're definitely living in a time of HATE and a time of war consistently on an everyday basis. Right, Ecclesiasticus 1, 3, and verse 1. It says, "To everything there is a season, and a time for every person in heaven." Right, so we're living in modern day time, season, every person in heaven, which is modern day biblical signs of the signs of times. And this is the book of Matthews, chapter 24, and verse 6. "For nation shall rise against nation," which goes into ethnos. "For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places." So as it says, once again, it says prompted Armenian clerk arrests on coup charges, live updates. Live enforcement raid the local seats of the National Church, which had protesters, territorial concessions to Azerbaijan. Choose a fluffy friend, write a message, and make their day. Start now at sendafriend.co. And this is a news article from RT.com. It reads, it says, U.S. and Israeli strikes on Iran violate the international law. Lokonaskio mentioned such an attack could pose a danger to people all over the globe. Belarus leader has said, right, because this is the same one which is allies with Russia. And you've been having the alliance between China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, especially Russia and Iran. That's a sad note to that. It says the U.S. and Israel has bravely violated a host of international agreements by striking Iranian nuclear facilities. Belarusian President Alexander Alensko has said he warned that consequences of such actions could have been catastrophic. It says Israel launched a strike on Iran nuclear military infrastructure on June the 13th, a day after the International Atomic Energy IEA passed a resolution declaring Iran to be in breach of its Non-Proliferation Treaty NPT obligations. And I believe Iran signed a bill in itself to not be affiliated or associated with the IEA anymore. I believe they had signed a bill. I think they signed a bill and voted on the bill as well the day before yesterday. It says something that Iran denied last week. It says U.S. carry out airstrikes targeting 3 Iranian nuclear facilities as well. The recent strikes on the Iranian nuclear facilities under control of the IEA are violating the norms of the international law in the most dangerous way. The Belarusian leader told a summit in the Euro-Asian Economic Union, the EAEU, on Friday. Minsk is particularly aware of the potential consequences of such actions, the president says, citing a 1986 Chernobyl disaster with the cause of vast territories to be contained with the radioactive materials thrown into the atmosphere following an explosion at a Soviet nuclear plant. It's the book of Matthews 24, because you're still going to have tension between Iran and Israel. Just like 2 days ago, you had the president in a pre-recorded message was telling that if Iran come under enemy threat, from the United States and Israel Defense Force targeting their nuclear facilities, they're going to respond back, This is Matthews 24, verse 7. "For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places." That's why, as of lately, I kind of noticed that for the past year and a half, and recently, throughout generations and throughout years, and recently as well too, we've definitely been seeing the nation's been calling out the Israel Defense Force because their rude behavior of using killers and innocent men, women, children over there in the Gaza Strip, using unrighteous airstrikes over there in the Gaza Strip, the West Bank, Palestinian territory. So, and you look at that as unrighteous creeds, like it says Isaiah 10 and verse 1. Matthews 24 verse 6, and ye shall hear of wars, rumors of wars, right? Russia versus Ukraine, Belarus and Russia together going against the NATO. Tensions are sparking up with that as well too. It says ye shall hear of wars, rumors of wars, right? You had the airstrike from the Israel Defense Force targeting the areas, targeting the military bases over there in Lebanon, which is Hezbollah, state military bases over there in Yemen. So that's only going to stir up more tensions between the Lebanese army and Hezbollah versus the Israel Defense Force, despite the fact they have a ceasefire in place, which was, I would say, last year and all the way to now. So we're going to see how that plays out, because the scriptures do say, 1 Thessalonians 5 verse 3, for when they shall say peace and safety, so destruction come upon them, as you travail, woman, child shall not escape. And this is so as it says once again, it says U.S. and Israeli strikes on Iran violating international law. Right from Alexander, the president of Belarus. Right, it says such attacks could pose a danger to people all over the globe. The Belarusian leader has said, right, because you've been having Israel Defense Force, they reckless with it. They just do unrighteous creeds, killing innocent men and children. They're not supposed to be the target, but they get caught in. They get caught in the target. They target them any other way. So that's the unrighteous. That's the injustice, the unrighteousness from the Israel Defense Force. And that's why we've been seeing the nations recently been calling them out. You've been having the Syrian armies calling them out. The pro-Iranian groups been calling the Israel Defense Force out, and the Russian armies as well too, and even the Turkish armies. All that's going to lead up to Ezekiel the 38th chapter, because Russia is going to be guarding to these nations of Iran, Ethiopia, Libya, and Turkey, targeting the Israel Defense Force over there in Western Asia. As I add a side note to that, it says a one-sided game in relations. The West is over. Putin says. Right, because the relations been kind of rocky between Russia and the West. So we definitely going to have tensions on there,
What happened in those 11 minutes? The interrogation begins. Coming up.
I jumped up. I ran to the master bedroom door. I kicked it open. My dad was holding it like this. I was like, I need to go get help. And then I screamed help to my neighbor's house.
Madison's dramatic story. Will police believe it?
Yeah. He's saying more something about missing all.
When Dateline continues.
And this is a news article from Arab News. I think this is what I was just talking about. Yep, it says as you're seeing that 40-second clip right there, this is a news article from ArabNews.com. It says two deleted, 15 injured in a Naboltek following instant Israeli intense Israeli airstrikes. It says Walid Jubalek urged all parties to hand over weapons. Israel has breached the ceasefire, says the Prime Minister of Nawaf Salam, published June 27, 2025, by Nijal Halir if I pronounce his name right. This is from Beirut. Ruth. It says a series of Israeli airstrikes target southern Lebanon on Friday, including a residential building in Nablus, located 77 kilometers south of Beirut. According to the Minister of Health, the raids killed 2 people, injured the owner of the shop located within the target building, and injured 15 others. Lebanon's Prime Minister Nawaf Salam has condemned the attacks, calling them a blatant violation of the national sovereignty and of the ceasefire agreement reached in November. It says also they threatened the stability striving to maintain. It says according to according to the officials and security sources, the Israeli army launched a wave of violence and intense rage on the hills surrounding Nabatalia. This marks, if I pronounced that right, couldn't pronounce the name right of that name. It says this marks the second largest assault on Nabatalia since the ceasefire. The strikes appears to have target ammunition deposit, and as per long explosions were heard heard across the area. Rumors and the Batia suggest that the missiles that hit the building was a result of the explosion at the weapons deposit targeted by the Israeli airstrikes. It is said that a missile flew from the deposit and hit the building, rather than being the result of an Israeli military drone. However, this information has not been confirmed by anyone except the Israeli side, which denied targeting the building. More than 20 airstrikes were launched, and within 15 minutes, this formed a ring of fire along the forest valleys and hills, particularly the Ali Al-Tahir Hills and Jamarcourt, Al Daborshash, and Kafar Tilbeni Heights in Nabtalia Al Farqura. It says as explosions echoed across southern Lebanon, a security sources stated that the missiles used in this attack were likely conclusions missiles given by the intensity of the blast. It says our residents claim that the target sites including Hezbollah warehouses and tunnels used by the group. Dozens of homes in Kafar, Tel Beni, and the Nabuti, Al Farqua, and Kafar Raman sustaining damage with the windows shattered by the blast. It says rockets were dispersed from the airstrikes, also blocked the Nabuti Calibrate road. The Israeli armies carried out similar attacks in the area that beginning of May. It says the Israeli army's spokesperson Avrishi Andredi said that the Israeli warplanes target a site used by Hezbollah to operate fire control, defense, and the Jabal Shequi, southern Lebanon. It says he claimed that the site was part of a underground project that has been put out of service following previously Israeli airstrikes in the area. It says the army reserve attempts to restore the site, which is why the group's infrastructure in the area was scrubbed. The Israeli Army military reported that an intensive raids once again target the underground structures in southern Lebanon after restoration efforts were detached. It says the Israeli army insists on blocking any restoration efforts of the removal of the dispersed from the destroyed border areas. Earlier this morning, an Israeli drone dropped a stun grenade near the 2 pickup trucks in the town of Ramya, while the drivers were loading scrap metals The drivers flew the scene. No injuries were reported. The ceasefire agreement faces a political deadlock because it is linked to several issues, including the disarmament of Hezbollah's forces north of the Litania River, Israeli withdrawal from 5 occupied Lebanese hills, and granting the social rights to the Palestinian refugees. It says in this text, former head of Progress Social Parties, Waleed Jim Black, a key political figure in Lebanon. It says, revealing unexpected that this party has handled its weapons over the Revelant authorities about 3 weeks ago. During the press conference on Wednesday evening, and Jiblak reiterated that he had informed President Joseph of his decision immediately after the latter elections of his intention to fill the constitutional vacancy in the declaration that sparked political debate on Friday. Jim Black announced that the weapons were stored at a compromised site were intended for use in acts of MURDER. He explained that he alerted the presidency and the complaint agencies that take positions this arsenal before any disaster occurred. The handing over took place about 3 weeks ago, but chose to remain discreet to preserve a stability as war were raging in the east and west, and now have calmed down. Thank God. It says Jambalay reveals that the weapons were gradually accumulated following the event of May 2008 between the sovereign forces, Hezbollah and its allies. All the parties in Lebanon had surrendered their weapons after the signing of the TED agreement, with the exception of Hezbollah, which considered its arsenal at the time of the weapons and resistance against Israel. Yep, so it says once again, 2 deleted, 15 injured in a following an intense Israeli strikes in Lebanon. Yep, once again, this is the book of Matthew, chapter 24, verse 6. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. Right, these are signs of wars and rumors of wars. With these ongoing proxy wars, escalations and tensions between nations, which we're seeing over there in Western Asia. It says, ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you be not troubled, for all these things must first come to pass, but the end's not yet. Matthew 24 and verse 7. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, which goes into ethnos. And there should be famines and pestilence, plagues, earthquakes, and other places. So with that, hopefully this quick sit down was edifying of the prophecy updates as of June the 28th, 2025 on this Saturday. So with that, I'd like to give all praises and glory and honor to Yahweh Ba'Hashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem, Makar and the Heavenly Father. True name is Yahweh, and His only begotten Son, Ba'Hashem, in the name of Mashiach Kapshai. Those are their true names in the ancient Paleo Hebrew, the last one tongue. Until next time, I will say Shalom. Superior adhesion and 4-way flexibility to move with your body for up to 8 hours.